Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning on our webinar, Chasing the Dragon, Bali and the Komodo Islands. I want to start off by saying it's obviously a lot. We've heard from numerous members over the last couple of weeks as the coronavirus situation continues to unfold and really change our lives in ways that we hadn't expected. There's still more to come on this topic. And obviously, travel is it's not something that's on a lot of people's mind at this point in time. At the same time, people expressed to me that they enjoyed watching our webinars because, let's face it, as travelers, part of travel is the anticipation of future travel and allowing yourself to dream a little bit. It's also why we watch documentaries and David Attenborough and all these and Anthony Bourdain reruns and so on. Is because we like to see what's out there in the world. So the idea here is the same. Our emphasis here is not on selling travel. Our emphasis is on really allowing you to get a glimpse into some of these wonderful parts of the world. So on that note, our topic today is our program Chasing the Dragon. It's a voyage through the Komodo Islands, which are in the Indonesian archipelago. So for those of you who are new to us, new to our webinars at Wheel and Anchor, I'll just briefly give you a little bit of an introduction into what we're all about. We are about bringing travelers together. So we are a Canadian company that I set up with a vision of taking travelers on experiences that are a little bit different than the normal mainstream tour companies. That's what we're all about. And doing so in the company of other people who also aspire to the same type of travel, not just the mundane, not just the recycled group tours, but to really truly different experiences, all of which are curated by myself. So that is what we're about at Wheel and Anchor. And I have a personal goal for every single one of our members, which is that you become well-traveled. And well-traveled, as we all know, is much more than just ticking off a destination off of your bucket list, but it's rather coming back, having experienced things and being able to share stories of these wonderful places that you have visited. And in the process of doing so, becoming connected to other like-minded travelers, as well as people that we meet along the way. And that is, frankly, I think, the essence of a fulfilled life, is when you have the ability to go out and become worldly, become well-traveled and well-connected. Our plan today, as usual, is taking you as interested travelers in this area. I mean, a lot of us have heard about Bali before, but the Indonesian archipelago, I'll tell you a little bit more about this vast group of islands. And I'm going to be going along with you and exploring through this. I've been to Bali before, but much of the itinerary I have not seen. And so with the help of my colleagues from Southeast Asia, we have put together this wonderful program. So I'm looking forward to sharing it with you today. And as I say, it's all about Bali and Indonesia. I would like to take a moment, though, to just explore a question about the cruise industry. This program, of course, is half of it involves a cruise. In fact, on the ship that you can see in the picture on the screen in front of you. And I think it's a question that we all have. What's going to happen with cruises in the future, given the challenges that coronavirus has put on so many big cruise lines? And I think that it's going to definitely change the industry. And I think there are a lot of travelers who are going to sort of scratch their heads and wonder if that's the right form of travel for them. I do think it will rebound. I think that we'll see people joining large cruise ships again in the future, but there is going to be a lot of skepticism, a lot of concern about the health measures and all of the precautions that they can take to ensure that the kind of situations can't come up again that we've seen happening over the last couple of months, which has really been miraculous. I think none of us have ever seen like the scale of what has happened. And by the same token, I think that I'm biased when I say this, but there will be a propensity towards smaller ships, because let's face it, if you're sailing on a yacht like the Panorama 2 that you can see here with 49 passengers on board, and of course, assuming that all of the necessary precautions, safety, hygiene, and everything that goes along with it, that we are all learning the hard way right now, that this kind of cruising, this kind of program will become more and more appealing. And so I'm very pleased that I think that opportunity will present itself. I think it puts us, it gives us a little bit of hope for ourselves that when the industry finally turns the corner, that there'll be options out there that there's a lot more ways to travel than just on a large cruise ship. So anyway, let's go back and talk a little bit about Indonesia and the area of the program that we're talking about now, which is this archipelago of islands. And here's the interesting thing, is that Indonesia has over 18,000 islands. And I think, a lot of people are aware of that, but, you look at it on a map, and, I'm a map person. And whenever I open up a map like this in front of me, I'm always fascinated by it. It's like, what do all these people do on all these remote islands in the middle of the Java Sea and the Timor Sea and so on? Only a fraction of those, only about a third of those, about 6,000, are actually inhabited in the overall archipelago. So there's a tremendous number of remote islands. And some of those are the ones that are within the Komodo National Park, which is basically where the little red dot is on the screen. And that park alone covers an area of over 1,700 square kilometers. We're going to get to see a part of it, specifically Rinca Island and Padar Island, in search of these legendary creatures known as the Komodo dragons. Taking a look at the map specifically of where we're headed, our point of commencement for the journey is Bali, is the island of Bali itself, specifically Benoa, which is right across from where the airport is in Bali and Denpasar. And we will embark our ship for the first part of our journey, and it will take us to the east as we pass Lombok and Moyo Island, and all these islands that will really be so picturesque, because of course this is all part of the Ring of Fire. So we'll see numerous volcanoes. We'll end up over at Flores Island and Rinca. This is again all of the areas that are part of the Komodo National Park, and then end up back in Bali, where we will then tour through the parts of Bali that most tourists actually don't go to. The vast majority of tourists who visit Bali are literally on that tiny little peninsula of land where the red star is on the map in front of you. The area called Nusa Dua and Kuta and Seminyak, that's where the vast majority of tourists in Bali go. And so we're not going to go there. We're going to go to the other part. So I'll tell you a little bit about that as we run through the program. It's part of why I'm excited about it, because we're going to see the other side of the real Bali, if you will. So let's look at the itinerary day by day. The scenery here is breathtaking. I mean, the color of the ocean, the coral reefs, everything, just like you see here. This is what you can expect in general terms, particularly on the sailing portion of our journey. So the whole thing will begin in September of 2021. So hopefully far enough off in the distance that the world will be devoid of the problems that we're going through right now. And we will fly into Bali, and I'll give you some details about that. But again, we're not talking about the travel aspect of it right now. It is a bit of a jaunt to get down to Bali, but we will arrive in and head straight on board ship to recover from the jet lag that will invariably hit us as we make the journey across the Pacific. And we'll spend the next 7 nights on the Panorama. Now, the Panorama is part of a fleet of vessels that's owned by Variety. It's a family-owned Greek company. I've worked with them for many, many, many years. And they really have wonderful ships, yachts that feel in many ways like your own private yacht. And that's what makes this experience so special, is when you look at this two-masted motor sailor, you just look at it and go, this is the way that I want to travel, is by sailboat. If you look at the pictures inside, they've got wonderful dining lounges, both inside and out, lots of deck space where you can just watch these beautiful Indonesian islands go by. And the cabins are, modest in size, but let's put it this way. It's like if you were going on a sailboat that was like on a real sailboat, you'd be in a small little cabin. So this is the benefit of going on a real yacht and having a proper sized cabin. So as with any small ship program, you don't have tons of amenities on board. As you can imagine, there's no climbing wall, there's no skeet shooting, and there's no entertainment show and all the rest of it. But you have an intimate experience, an environment where you get to meet and talk to other people while you are passing through this amazing scenery. And what I like the best is we can pull up anchor somewhere, drop anchor and go swimming right off the back of the boat. And that's really what is special about this kind of a journey. So we will begin our sail heading out of Bali. We'll sail right out overnight and arrive near just to the east of Lombok in the morning, where we'll visit the islands of Bedil and Keramat, which are two of the uninhabited islands. And so we're going to start off nice and easy by just simply enjoying these wonderful waters. As you can see here in the picture, we'll do some snorkeling, we'll explore some marine life, we'll just ease into this whole program. And when I look at these pictures, it really reminds me, because I haven't actually been to this particular part of Indonesia. And so it's reminiscent of a part of Indonesia up in the north off of Sumatra, some islands I visited years back called the Mentawai Islands, which are in, as I say, central Sumatra or off of central Sumatra. And the landscape is very much like this. It's this soft white sand, these beautiful turquoise waters, as clear as a swimming pool. We'll have truly an amazing experience, but also exploring into the land, into these virgin forests. From here, we can see up over to Lombok, and Lombok is famous for having Mount Rinjani on it, which is one of the tallest. I think it's the second tallest mountain in Indonesia, and it is an active volcano. In fact, it just erupted about 4 years ago. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. We'll head from here. We're going to continue sailing to the east as we make our way over to the Komodo area, and we're going to visit Satanda Island and Keramat. So this is one of these special places. Now, you have to keep in mind, all of this is part of the Ring of Fire, the Pacific Ring of Fire, which is the string of volcanoes and underwater chasms and rifts and so on that are essentially the fault line between the Pacific and the Indian Ocean sort of tectonic plates. As I said, the Ring of Fire. And so what you'll find here is very special places like Satanda, which is this salty crater lake. So the legend has it that a tsunami came in and filled up this huge volcanic crater with water. And that's why you have this lake in the middle. So we'll moor our ship basically just below where you can see where this photo is taken from. We'll climb up to this wonderful viewpoint and have a beautiful, just unbelievable view looking over this amazing, this crater lake. So we'll spend the morning there doing the exploring around here. We'll do some snorkeling in the afternoon. And we'll continue on there, heading over to the island of Flores, which will be our third stop. We are now getting closer and closer to the Komodo Islands. And so the one thing that you have to remember is that, Indonesia has some 165 million people in it. So there are villages everywhere. So there are islands that are completely uninhabited, and there are islands like this that are large, and they have quite an active population, and active in the sense that they maintain a lot of the traditional ways of life. And that's part of what I like about this trip is that here you're getting away from where 98% of tourists will ever go. There's still tourists that travel through these regions, absolutely, but not the kind of mass tourism that you'll find, in and around the southern parts of Bali, as an example. When we get in here into this particular area, not only is this island known for being one of the greenest and one of the lushest in the archipelago, but the interesting thing is we always associate Indonesia with being Muslim, but this particular island is actually 85% Catholic. So when we visit the local markets, when we see the dances and so on that they create, you get a very different sense, because I think all the people in Indonesia are wonderful, and I've traveled through various parts of it. But it is a different feeling when you're have people that practice a Catholic religion versus a Muslim religion. not in a positive or negative way, but it's just a very unique experience, and you'll see that as well in Bali, which is of course Hindu. Um, so we'll spend a day there. We'll actually overnight in the Labuan Banjo port, and then begin our tour inside of Komodo National Park. And this is obviously part of the reason why we're coming all the way out here to these remote islands in Indonesia, is to see these beautiful guys here. We're going to go to Rinca Island first and foremost, because although it's not as large as Komodo Island itself, it is where we will definitely see the creatures, but this is where we're likely to see a larger proliferation of them. And we'll spend part of the day walking around the terrain here. It's actually grassland here. It's not the dense jungle that you'll find in other islands of Indonesia. And these creatures look, and frankly can be quite deadly. They're not really a threat to humans. In fact, the research that I was doing said they've only had 5 human fatalities in 50 years or something like that. So we're going to be perfectly safe. We'll be with a ranger. He knows how to deal with these guys. But these animals are huge. I mean, they're like 300. They weigh up to like 300 pounds, 3 meters long. So when you see them, and I haven't seen them in the wild, I haven't been here to Komodo before. I've seen them in wildlife refuges like the zoo and so on, and they are daunting looking creatures. I mean, these things can take down deer and cattle even. They are awesome things. Like, you literally feel like you'll be walking into a David Attenborough film when you see these amazing creatures. Similarly, and I want to make one other point about this, actually. And part of the reason why I'm keen that we do this trip as soon as possible is that the Indonesian government has contemplated closing down this park to tourists, because they are, like so many other creatures like them, they are under threat from humanity, not to the point of extinction, but nevertheless, their numbers are in the thousands, which is, in the scheme of wildlife, is not very much. And so it's possible that at some point in the future we simply won't be able to see them, or we'll only be able to see them in captivity. So I think that's a compelling reason to go. Later that day, we'll zoom off to one of the other islands that is in Komodo National Park, which is Padar Island, with its pink beach. It actually has beaches that have pink, black, and yellow sand. So it's a nice way to sort of relax in the ocean once we've had a chance to walk around chasing the dragons, as it were. We'll head over here from here over to Moyo Island. Moyo Island, again, another very lush island, so very different flora and fauna than you'll find in the Komodo Islands themselves, or in the national park. There's spectacular forest here, and in particular, and I love waterfalls, and this Mata Jitu waterfall here became famous because Mick Jagger went here, Lady Diana went here. It's such a beautiful part of the world that it attracted all of these celebrities from all over the place. And this is a multi-layered, this picture doesn't even do it justice, but it is a multi-layered cascading pool of waterfalls that I think in total is about 25 or 30 meters high. It's just breathtaking. So, this is the place where there'll be 1 million Instagram pictures taken. And again, because it's so remote, it's not on the typical tourist trail, because you can't just like if you didn't show up here in a sailing yacht like we're coming on, the journey to get here would take you days and days and days by the time you hopped over to the islands, and then one little boat and chartering another boat. They're just not that easy to get to, and that's what makes the itinerary so unique and so interesting. From Moyo Island, we'll get one more night, our second last night on the boat, and we'll get to Lombok itself. And you probably have heard of Lombok before, because it's the island directly adjacent to Bali. It has sort of become the place where people who don't want to deal with Bali and all the masses or what the perceived mass tourism, because as I say, there's parts of Bali that are totally remote where hardly anybody goes to. But Lombok has become very famous People go there to climb Mount Rinjani, which is almost 4,000 meters high. And as I say, it erupted as recently as 2016, just 4 years ago. It wasn't a massive eruption. There were no fatalities or anything, but this is an active volcano. And so when we're here, we're going to drive up to this amazing viewpoint on the side of the mountain where we'll be able to look down on the so-called Gili Islands, which are one of the backpacker sort of meccas in Southeast Asia. So all in all, we'll have a wonderful time on our last full day on board ship when we'll be in Lombok. That evening, we have, as usual, our captain's dinner, which is always a fun affair, and we'll be ready to head back to Bali, where we will get off and say farewell to our ship, to the Panorama 2, and continue overland for the next week. Bali, as I say, when I first went to Bali some years back, I was totally taken by this magical architecture and the rice paddies. If you just Google images of Bali, that's what it looks like. It is just a magical place. But as I say, a lot of people never leave the southern tip of Bali, which is where the vast majority of the resorts are and so on. We're going to head away from that because, you could do that. You could stay on and add on a few days if you wanted to go one of these beach resorts in Bali. But I mean, you could do that anywhere. You go to Mexico. The parts of Bali that you want to see are really those that are up around Mount Agung, as well as in the very western side of the country. And so we're going to drive up, first of all, along this eastern coast, and stop in at a place called Klung Klung Palace, which is one of the largest palace complexes, and also here the Besaki Temple, which is the largest Hindu temple in Bali. And again, as I mentioned before, this is an anomaly. Bali is an anomaly because it's predominantly Hindu religion. I think 90 some odd % of the island is Hindu, and it's interesting because in a country with 160 some odd million people, where overall the vast majority are Muslim, it creates its own set of cultural challenges, and you'll find the people of Bali very different than elsewhere in Indonesia. And so we're going to learn all about this all along on the trip, and I think that's part of what's interesting is that you have these little enclaves, whether it's Satanda or whether it's the whole island of Bali that exist very harmoniously inside of the country of Indonesia. We're going to be up in the area called Sidaman. We have a lovely, lovely hotel picked out for you there, Wape de Ume. And, the places that we're staying in really epitomize this Balinese architecture: bamboo and thatched roofs and cascading swimming pools. I mean, it's magical. Believe me, you'll get there, you just won't want to leave. So we spend, as I say, the first 4 nights in Bali. So again, we've gone after my traditional approach to these kinds of trips, where I don't like to bounce around. We're spending 4 nights on the east side of Bali and 3 nights on the west side of Bali. We'll visit places like Tirtaganga, which is this palace that was built actually not that long ago. It was only built like in the mid 1940s by one of the last kings of this part of Indonesia, of Bali, and named after the river Ganges. So there's a whole history to it. I'm not going to get into it and ruin the surprise there, but this is really one of the most popular spots to visit. All these ponds are full of beautiful, colorful goldfish, and it's quite a remarkable day where we'll get to see the pomp and circumstance, if you will, of sort of Balinese of architecture and how the royalty sort of lived. The next day, when we go out into the countryside, we're going to see more how the real people of Bali live, because again, I think to see the juxtaposition between these grand old palaces and temples is great, but what I find is getting an opportunity to get into the local communities and learning about how agriculture works in Bali. When you drive around, you see tons of rice paddies and so on and so forth, and you'll see obviously people out there picking the rice, there's a huge number of challenges associated with all these kinds of architectural practices. And so by going out and visiting some of these places like Penglipuran, you get to, we're going to find out more about how the people of Bali actually exist. This particular complex here, again, all made out of bamboo with stone foundations, and they still practice very unique forms of land management where the whole town is divided up based on purity. So the pieces of land that are closest to Mount Agung, which is a volcano that's the holiest and most sacred place in all of Bali, are the purest pieces of land. So generally only temples get to be built there. And then in the middle is where the ordinary people get to live. And then in the back is where they put the cemeteries. It's just really fascinating, the level of thought that went into the design of some of these ancient villages and cities and so on. Of course, we'll get to spend a whole day at leisure here because that's part of all of our trips, particularly here, is that you want to be able to enjoy the countryside on your own. And the nice thing about Bali is that there's lots of different ways to do it. The resorts, the hotels that we're staying at here have a whole range of options that you can do. We always figure something out whenever we go on my trips. We find something neat to do. If we have really active people, you can actually climb up Mount Agung that you can see pictured and behind you. But that is a trek. That is the volcano is over 3,000 meters high, and you have to leave in the middle of the night. So it's not for the faint of heart, but they say that the sunrise from up there is like no other place in the world. So in all likelihood, we'll probably just explore the area right around the resort and see them. And there's a tremendous amount of things to see. And Bali has such amazing crafts and souvenirs. They are tremendous artisans. So if you like any shopping at all, and I know a few of you do, you will be completely blown away by what Bali has to offer and the quality of their artisanship. So after having spent a few days on the east side, we are then going to make our way over to the west side of Bali, and we're going to pass Mount Batur, which is another one of these sacred volcanoes. We're going to see it from Kintamani, so this is sort of a couple hours drive out, heading up towards the north of Bali. We're then going to head along all the north coast. So in fact, on this trip, we're going to actually end up practically circumnavigating, driving all the way around the entire island of Bali, which once again is something that most travelers to Bali don't do. They've got some neat hot springs up there called Banjar, and we'll have a chance. And as I was writing all this together, I was thinking, because we did a hot spring stop when we were going through Egypt in January, and everybody really loved the opportunity to just soak up. There's nothing like water that comes right out of the earth. So we'll hit Banjar on the way to the west coast, where we will check into our lovely 5-star hotel. And again, I picked something that's quite unique, and I think you'll find it very, very interesting and exciting. So we'll spend our last 3 nights in Bali here in this area called Menjangan, and it is adjacent to the West Bali National Park, which basically forms the whole sort of northwestern tip of the island of Bali. And we're going to spend a day here because I think you can't come to this part of the world without getting a deeper insight into their cuisine. So we're going to do a cooking class. We're going to learn all about all of these local dishes and these local ingredients that are made, because I think it's one of the best souvenirs you can bring back home is a little bit of knowledge on how to create these delicious exotic cuisines. We'll hopefully get a chance to try patutu, which is a way that they steam chicken, or babi guling, which is this roast suckling pig that is sort of the dish, if you will, of Bali. So these are all things that we'll hopefully get to try out on our culinary, on our cooking day. And this takes place from right within the West Bali National Park, which is just not a far drive from our hotel that is on the northwest coast. We'll have then, again, another full day of leisure, because I think, again, it's important that you have a chance to just relax, particularly because we're on on the home stretch, if you will, of this trip. And I think with some people, I imagine on any kind of a trip like this, usually half the folks like to just relax and soak up these wonderful lodging that we've selected for this trip. But you may want to get your last chance to go snorkeling in the wonderful waters, these turquoise blue the waters like you see here. And this is Manjangan Island, which forms part of the West Valley National Park. And you can go snorkeling here, and it's like few other places on Earth in terms of all of the creatures that you can see. Manta rays, and if you're lucky, you can spot sharks, and it is truly, truly magnificent. But there's also a chance to go back into the West Valley Park itself, where they have great bird life, monkeys, macaques, all kinds of other creatures. So there'll be no shortage of things for us to enjoy on our last day in the west part of Bali. And then from there, we'll have to say farewell, and we'll drive all the way along the south coast of the island. So by this point, we'll have gone all around the entire island of Bali. The flight goes out in the afternoon if you take the flights that we recommend, which goes via Taiwan, and we'll fly back in the evening, stopping in at Taipei. And the reason that I'm recommending this particular route is because Taipei is a fascinating city, and it's one that it's not on a lot of people's radar screens. People often will talk about Hong Kong and Singapore, and perhaps Shanghai and Tokyo as sort of the major cities in Asia that you have to visit, but Taipei should be on that list. So it's a great place, whether you choose just to spend the one night there. The way that the flight connections work with EVA Air, which is the airline of Taiwan, is that it arrives later in the evening, so have a good night's sleep. We have a wonderful hotel in Taipei, the Sherwood, which is right downtown, not far from the rail station and the airport express link. And we'll have a full day that will explore a little bit of the city. And we are planning to do an extension program, a further 4 nights in Taiwan, so that you can explore some of the island that, again, is, I think, quite misunderstood, because we all associate it with, made in Taiwan, it must be full of factories and so on. But there are a lot of sides to Taiwan. And of course, my colleague Joel, who some of you know, lives in Taipei, so he'll be there to receive us as well as we spend at least a day, and for those that wish, a few more days in Taiwan. So I will, and as I say, following that, we will fly back. Those in Toronto and Vancouver have nonstop flights on EVA Air, so it's makes for very good connections, and it's a great airline, by the way. I'll give you a few details about this program. I'm going to just do it very fast, because again, we're not really in the sales mode at this point in time. We're not really expecting anyone to consider this until we can look behind us on the whole coronavirus situation. So the program is, I think, very well priced. It starts sort of in the mid sevens and goes up from there. That's for 2 full weeks. So it's really quite a good deal. As usual, it has all of the inclusions that you can expect from our trips. It's all of the accommodation on the ship, 4- and 5-star hotels, and everything else that we normally include. And similarly, there's only a few things that we exclude, and all the details will be available in the brochure when it comes out. And although it's a long way, airfares aren't too expensive, so they range sort of between $1,200, $1,300, $1,400, depending on where in Canada you're flying from. So all those details, worry about it at some other time. I was really just anxious to show you about this wonderful trip that we've had on the books. It came out very highly requested by many of our members in our last trip inspiration survey. And we're excited to be able to offer it next year, and to dream a little bit, as I hope you have been able to do so in joining me on the webinar thus far. If you have any questions, now is the time. Of course, you can always send us an email, either to myself or to Paula at bookings@wheelandanchor.ca. But I'd like to take a few of the questions that I see have come in now. So let me just pull up the questions. Okay. James asked, have I flown Eva Air before? Yes, actually, it's probably one of my most preferred airlines to fly to Asia. I think it is quality-wise right up there with Cathay Pacific. And so it's a great way to go. And you can go nonstop Toronto or Vancouver, boom, right to Taipei. And from there, you have great connections all over Asia. So it is, I would call it an airline of choice. You know, those Asian airlines are really, really good. Let's see. Richard asked, is the sea rough? We are in the midst of the Savu Sea, the Java Sea. And so although a lot of our sailing is in and amongst the islands and we stay fairly close to shore, that mitigates the high seas, but you can get some, you're going to get some movement for sure. It's not as smooth as a river cruise, but we are going in the dry season outside of the monsoon season. So you don't usually get too many big winds at this time of the year. So I would say a gentle rocking is probably the most of what you should expect. But as I always say, you can consult with your physician or travel medical professional who can give you a patch or one of these bracelets and so on. I have a question here from Sita. How high a walk is it up to the Karamat salty crater lake? It's not a huge long walk. I think it's quite doable for pretty much anybody that would join our trip. It's probably about a 40-45 minute trip. It is a fairly well-trodden path from what I have been told, but I will certainly get more details on how challenging that is. But this program is designed for folks of our community who are in that demographic, and so we're not going to make you climb up Mount Agung. That is for sure. Okay, and Sandy asked, why can't we do this trip in the winter months? Good question, Sandy. The reason that we do this trip at this time of the year is that Bali and this part of Indonesia have a climate that their high season, their good weather, is the same time as ours in Canada. It's June till September. So the winter time, our winter time, is for them the rainy, the monsoon season. The weather can be really quite unpredictable. It's very humid, and you can get quite a bit of rain. So that's why, as much as it would be nice to go in January or February when it's really cold at home, the most optimal time to go is during our summer months. Hence why we picked September, when at least at home the weather's starting to get a little bit more inclement. Rob asked, how likely are we to see the Komodo dragons? You will see them for sure. So we might not see all of them, but we'll definitely see some of them. I mean, that's the nice thing about going to Rinca is that they have a plethora of them. They're protected. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And so much like going to the Galapagos, you will see the creatures that are there because they're all concentrated in this area. So no worries about that. And let me see, there's one more question here. We have a comment from Jean. The trip looks fabulous, worth getting up for. Well, thank you, Jean, for that comment. I appreciate it. It's going to be a great trip. I see one more question here from Diane. What's the weather like? Well, Diane, this is the tropics, so it's tropical. The temperatures during the day will definitely be in the high 20s or possibly even low 30s. And it's on the humid side, not unbearably so. It's dry season, so it's not as humid as it would be, as I said just a little bit earlier, as it would be in January or February. But it's warm. And so this Bali is all about light dresses and shorts and t-shirts. You have to be mindful about covering up at certain temples out of respect for the various religions and so on. But yeah, it's summertime and you're going to love it. Good. I don't see any other questions on the screen tonight. So I thank you once again for joining us and learning a little bit about Bali and the Komodo Islands. I hope you all stay well, stay healthy, stay distant from one another. And I look forward to bringing you some more things to dream about over the coming weeks. and hopefully we can look back on this crisis in the not too distant future and be able to get out traveling again. So until then, I wish you all a wonderful day, and I look forward to speaking with you in the near future. Have a good day.